the silence dark, whispers in the midnight park. The night is cold, there's no escape. Ghostly figures take their shape.
Hey, welcome back to Real Talk Horror Edition, the podcast where we dive into some of the most fascinating and terrifying horror films. If you love stories that play with your mind, where nothing is ever as it seems, and where the scariest parts happen inside the characters' heads, you're in the right place. In this series, we explore how psychological horror works. What makes it different from other types of horror? It's all about the mind. The fear isn't just from ghosts or monsters. It comes from the way characters start to doubt themselves, their thoughts, and their reality. They question what's real, what's imagined, and whether their fears are all in their head or if something really terrifying is happening. It's a slow burn where the tension builds up over time, and you find yourself getting more and more uneasy with each minute. It's not about quick jump scares, but creeping doubt, growing fear, in an atmosphere that leaves you feeling on edge. In every episode, we break down the movies. We are doing this in 3 parts. Part 1 we already completed, and that was on Mind Games and Madness. Right now, we are in the heart of Part 2, Paranoia and the Unknown. And then the 3rd part of our series will end on trauma and transformation. Today, we're looking at What Lies Beneath, a film that mixes all the elements of psychological horror in a really fascinating way. It's an example of a psychological horror film that keeps you guessing. It makes you question whether what you're seeing is supernatural or just in the characters' minds. The movie touches on themes like paranoia, isolation, and the fear of the unknown, all of which create a story full of tension and suspense. This is part 2 of our series and film 4 of 7, focusing on the paranoia and isolation, which are all parts of What Lies Beneath. These themes are not only scary, but they also make the characters, and us, question everything happening around us. It's like walking through a foggy forest, unsure if there's something lurking, just out of sight. So a quick breakdown of the film. What Lies Beneath was directed by Robert Zemeckis, who is well known for his work on films like Back to the Future and Forrest Gump. But in this film, Zemeckis takes a turn into the horror genre, bringing a haunting, unsettling atmosphere to the screen. The screenplay was written by Clark Gregg, who also brought us The Avengers and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., showing he's no stranger to telling stories with twists and complex emotions. The film stars 2 big names, Harrison Ford playing Dr. Norman Spencer and Michelle Pfeiffer playing his wife Claire. Ford, known for his action roles like Indiana Jones and Han Solo, takes on a more mysterious and eerie role here. Pfeiffer, one of Hollywood's most talented actresses, does an amazing job bringing Claire's vulnerability to life. She starts off as a grieving mother and wife, but as the story unfolds, you see her character unraveling with fear and doubt. To add to the eerie mood, the film has a beautiful yet chilling look thanks to cinematographer Don Burgess. He uses lighting and camera angles to create a sense of isolation and confusion. You'll often see Claire surrounded by shadows or looking into mirrors, which reflect not just her image, but her mental state as well. The music by Alan Silvestri, who is known for scoring many of Zemeckis' films, perfectly complements the tension. His haunting melodies make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, especially in the quiet moments when nothing seems to be happening, but you feel like something is just about to. So what's the movie about? Well, What Lies Beneath is about Dr. Norman Spencer and his wife Claire, who live in a big, beautiful house by a lake. At first, everything seems perfect, but soon, Claire begins to experience strange, spooky things. She hears sounds, sees reflections in the water, and feels like something is watching her. At first, she's unsure of what's happening. Is it just her mind playing tricks on her? Is she seeing things because of her grief over her daughter leaving home? Or is the house truly haunted? As Claire digs deeper into the mystery, she starts to suspect that maybe the supernatural events she's experiencing are connected to her husband Norman and his past. She becomes more and more terrified as she uncovers secrets that he's been hiding. As she spirals deeper into paranoia, the question is, what's real and what's in her mind? The supernatural events in the house feel very real, but so does Claire's fear and her confusion about what's happening. This is where the psychological horror kicks in. The movie doesn't just rely on creepy ghost stories, it tries to get inside your head and make you wonder whether Claire is losing her grip on reality. And if she is, how can she trust anyone, including her own husband? So my initial thoughts when I first saw this film, I was drawn to its mix of supernatural mystery and psychological tension. It's not one of those movies where you jump at every sound or ghostly appearance. Instead, it does a slow build-up and it makes you feel uneasy as Claire starts to doubt what's happening. It's kind of like watching someone start to unravel right in front of you and you can't really look away. The scariest part of this movie is the uncertainty. As you watch, you're never really sure if the ghostly things happening are real or if they're just Claire's mind breaking down. And that's really the magic of psychological horror, the way it plays with your mind. You feel like you're walking through a fog, things don't make sense, and you're not sure whether scary stuff is real or not. And as the story goes on, you start to wonder, what if the real horror isn't the ghosts? What if the real horror isn't the hauntings? What if the real terror is what's inside of our characters' minds? The question of what's real and what's imagined is where the true horror lies and what lies beneath. It makes you think about how our minds can sometimes create nightmares that are just as terrifying as anything we can see with our eyes. Now that you know what the movie is about, let's start to dive deeper into the psychological elements and break down the mind games, the paranoia, and the trauma that make this film a thought-provoking ride. Stay tuned. In What Lies Beneath, the film explores deep psychological themes, and most of them will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, it's not just about things that go bump in the night, but also about how our minds can trick us into questioning reality. The film creates an atmosphere where you're never quite sure what's real and what's not, and that can make the film very unsettling. One of the biggest psychological themes in What Lies Beneath is the manipulation of reality. As the story unfolds, Claire starts to feel more and more paranoid. She's not sure what's real and what's not. Is she really being haunted by a ghost? Or is her mind playing tricks on her? This idea of questioning reality is a key part of the film. Another major part of the manipulation is the gaslighting, the term to use to describe when someone makes another person doubt their own memory or insanity. In this case, Dr. Spencer plays a big role in this. When Claire starts to get scared and notice things happening, Dr. Spencer dismisses her fears. He tries to make her feel like she's overreacting, making her doubt herself even more. This constant dismissal of her feelings adds to Claire's confusion, and it creates a lot of the tension throughout the film. And us in the audience, we feel this tension as well. As Claire begins to question her own sanity, we start to wonder if what Claire is experiencing is real or just in her head. The feeling of being unsure, whether it's because of the gaslighting or the creepy supernatural events, creates an environment of mental instability that can be hard to shake off. A central idea in What Lies Beneath is the difference between perception and reality. Perception, as we know, is how we see and understand the world around us, but it's not always the same as reality. In the film, Claire's perception of what's happening keeps shifting. She starts to see strange things happening around the house, hearing voices, seeing ghostly figures. But as these events unfold, it becomes hard for both Claire and us to figure out if these things are truly happening, or if Claire is simply imagining them because of her emotional struggles. This blurring of lines between what's real and imagined is a key part of the psychological horror. We're left questioning, is Claire being haunted by a ghost, or is she slowly losing her mind? The tension grows because we're never given a clear answer. We're forced to live in the same uncertainty that Claire experiences. This constant back and forth between reality and delusion is what makes the film at times very psychologically intense. By the time we get to the end, we're left with an unsettling feeling that we may never know for sure what's real. And that is what makes psychological horror so powerful, because it doesn't always give you clear answers, leaving you with that fear that maybe, just maybe, the scariest thing of all is never getting to know the truth. The way Claire's character develops throughout the film is also central to the psychological tension. At the beginning of the movie, Claire seems like a grieving woman who's just struggling with her emotions. Her daughter has left for college and she's trying to find a new purpose in her life. She's also dealing with the fact that her marriage is a little distant and she doesn't seem quite sure about who she is anymore. These internal struggles make her more vulnerable, which is important when the supernatural events start to happen. As the movie continues, these feelings of vulnerability grow. The haunting visions Claire starts seeing make her feel even more fragile. She's unsure whether the things she's seeing are ghosts or just the results of her own fragile emotional state. These experiences push her deeper into fear and doubt. They make her question her identity, her marriage, and what's truly going on. And her husband, Dr. Spencer, is another interesting character because he stays mysterious for much of the film. At first, he seems like a perfect husband, but as the story goes on, we see that he's hiding a lot of secrets. The more we learn about him, the more we realize that he may be part of the problem, not the solution. His own dark secrets come to light as the film moves forward, adding to Claire's confusion and isolation. This character development is crucial because it shows us how psychological horror isn't just about what you see on screen. It's about what's going on inside the characters' minds. The fear they experience isn't just physical, it's emotional and mental. And as the story continues, Claire's emotional breakdown starts to become terrifying, more than any ghostly encounter. Now, at its heart, What Lies Beneath is all about the fear of the unknown. The movie uses supernatural elements to introduce this idea. There are ghosts, strange noises, and eerie visions. But what makes it more terrifying is that we are never entirely sure what's causing these events. Is it really a ghost, or is it something else entirely? We don't know, and that uncertainty can make it scary. The fear of the unknown is one of the strongest themes in horror because it taps into a universal human fear. We all fear the things that we can't see or understand, whether it's ghosts, monsters, or just the feeling that something's wrong that we can't quite figure out what. In the film, this fear is amplified because Claire is unsure whether the danger is real or if it's all in her head. The film keeps us in the dark, never lets us know if the supernatural occurrences are truly happening or if they're just the product of Claire's mind. This fear of not knowing creates a sense of constant unease. And as the audience, we don't have the answers. And just like Claire, we're forced to live with that uncertainty. And that's what makes the tension so palpable. It's not about what's happening on screen, but what we're left wondering about in the end. Will we ever get the answers we crave? And if not, how do we cope with that fear? What Lies Beneath is an example of how psychological horror can work on multiple levels. It's not just about things that go bump in the night, but also about how our minds can trick us, how we question our own perceptions, and how we grapple with fear when we don't have the answers. Through Claire's journey, the film takes us deep into the complexities of human psychology. where the line between what's real and what's imagined is often hard to find. And that, my friends, can truly be frightening. What Lies Beneath has an atmosphere and tone that play a huge role in creating a sense of unease and dread. Everything from the lighting to the music to the setting builds this tension, making us feel just as disoriented and unsettled as our main character Claire. Let's break down how the film uses the elements to pull us into its world of psychological horror. The film's visual style is one of the main tools used to create the tension. Robert Zemeckis knows how to use the camera to make us feel like we're trapped inside Claire's mind. One of the key ways this is done is through lighting. The film uses shadowy, dimly lit scenes which keep things mysterious and frightening. The shadows are never quite explained, making it feel like there's a lurking something in the dark. Something we can't see, but we inherently know it's there. These shadows play on Claire's fears and doubts, and she's constantly questioning what's real and what isn't. Another technique Zemeckis uses is close-up shots, focusing on Claire's face and her reactions to the strange events. By keeping the camera close to her, we feel her anxiety and confusion up close. It's like we're right there with her, experiencing the fear and uncertainty as she tries to make sense of the strange things happening around her. Mirrors and reflections, as is the case with most of these films, is another important part. Throughout the film, we see Claire staring at herself in mirrors or reflecting on glass surfaces, which often gives us a sense of her fragmented reality. The reflection isn't always clear or stable, and it makes us feel like we're looking at something distorted, just like how Claire's mind is struggling to figure out what's real. These off-kilter shots, where things are just slightly out of place, add to this confusion and create a disorienting effect, making us wonder if we're actually seeing something happening, or if it's all just an imagination in Claire's head. The water imagery also plays a key role in the film. Water, which can be both calm and dangerous, represents the emotional turmoil Claire is going through. The lakeside setting is full of large bodies of water, which seem to pull Claire in, just like how her emotions and doubts drag her deeper into confusion. Water is often used in scenes where Claire is overwhelmed, and it adds to the feeling that she's sinking into something that she just can't escape from, an unknown, murky world where everything is unclear. When it comes to sound, What Lies Beneath is incredibly effective in building its eerie atmosphere. Alan Silvestri uses a subtle but haunting score. The music is often slow and low, with sustained notes that make you feel uneasy. These deep, drawn-out sounds create a sense of dread, like something terrible is about to happen, but we don't know what or when. It's like a warning that never quite goes off, keeping the tension high throughout the film. But it's not just the music that makes the film sound so unsettling. The sound design often plays with silence or faint, eerie noises like the creaking floors and distant whispers or unexplained knocks. These sounds are often left to linger, giving us a chance to fill in the gaps with our imagination. And because there are times when we hear nothing but the sound of Claire breathing or the wind outside, we start to feel that same kind of isolation she's experiencing. When there's no clear answer or comforting sound, it makes the environment feel unstable, like anything could happen at any moment. The use of sound in this way is perfect for psychological horror, because it makes us feel like we're on edge, not knowing what's real and what's imagined. The eerie silence forces us to question whether we're hearing things that are really happening, or if they're just in Claire's head. And as the film builds towards its climax, the sound becomes more intense and chaotic, matching Claire's growing panic and confusion. Now let's talk about the setting. The film takes place in a large, isolated lakeside home, and the house itself becomes another character in this story. It's dark and empty, full of vast, unwelcoming spaces. There's a coldness to the house, especially in the rooms where Claire spends most of her time. These dark corners and long hallways give the house a feeling of being alive, as if it's watching Claire, trapping her in its eerie embrace. It's a place where secrets are hidden and where Claire can't escape her own doubts. The house becomes both a sanctuary and a prison for Claire. On one hand, it's where she's supposed to feel safe. After all, it's her home with her husband. But on the other hand, it's full of shadows, strange noises, and memories of things that might not be what they seem. The house represents Claire's mental state. One minute, it seems like a safe space, but the next, it's a place filled with uncertainty and fear. As Claire's mind starts to unravel, so does her relationship with the house. What was once familiar becomes alien and unsettling. And then there's the outdoors. The vast, empty lakeside escape reflects Claire's internal struggle. The surrounding by trees and the mountains, it's massive and impersonal, just like the overwhelming emotions Claire is facing. She's surrounded by a world that's too big for her to understand, and this setting highlights her sense of being lost and isolated. The more Claire tries to figure things out, the more the outdoors feel like an impassable barrier. The wilderness outside mirrors the mental wilderness Claire is trying to navigate. It's a place where everything seems foggy and unclear. The setting, the house, and the outside world all work together to make Claire feel alone, confused, and trapped in a situation she can't control. The house becomes a reflection of her mind, dark, unsettling, and full of hidden truths. And the vast, empty surroundings just make her feel more disconnected from reality. Now, when we put all of these elements together, the cinematography, sound design, and setting, we get a film that isn't just about jump scares or supernatural hauntings. It's about the psychological tension that builds from the inside out. The way the film plays with Claire's perceptions of reality and how the setting mirrors her mental state, it keeps us on edge. Everything here is working to create an atmosphere that's haunting, disorienting, and psychologically unsettling. And that's when this film becomes so effective as a psychological horror film. In What Lies Beneath, the characters truly are the heart of this film's psychological tension. Let's dive into the main characters and see how their minds shape the story. Protagonist Claire Spencer, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, starts the movie in a fragile state. She's struggling with grief after her daughter leaves for college. At the beginning, Claire seems like a woman trying to cope with the silence and emptiness of her life. She's emotionally vulnerable, and this makes her an easy target for strange things that begin to happen around her. Claire spends a lot of time alone in her huge lakeside house, and her emotional state creates a perfect backdrop for the supernatural events that follow. But as the story progresses, Claire's psychology starts to change dramatically. The supernatural events in the house, strange noises, mysterious visions, and ghostly occurrences make her increasingly paranoid. At first, she questions whether these things are real or if she's just imagining them because of her emotional distress. As the events grow more intense, Claire starts to doubt her own mind. She questions her sanity, wondering if the house is truly haunted or if her grief is causing her to lose control of her thoughts. Michelle Pfeiffer does a great job of showing Claire's gradual unraveling. As Claire becomes more terrified of what she might be seeing, her sense of reality begins to fade. She's scared, and at times she feels completely helpless. Her increasing distrust of herself is one of the scariest parts of the movie. Is Claire just going crazy? Or is something truly sinister happening in the house? This constant tension keeps us on edge, not knowing whether Claire's fears are justified or just a product of her mind playing tricks on her. As the film goes on, Claire begins to suspect that her husband Norman might be hiding something from her. This suspicion creates a huge amount of tension, because Claire isn't sure if she can trust him anymore. Is he lying to her? Is he part of whatever is happening in the house? This question hangs over the entire film and adds to Claire's growing paranoia. Her struggle to understand what's real and what's imagined is one of the key emotional experiences of the movie. In this film, the antagonist isn't just a ghost or a monster. It's a combination of supernatural forces and psychological manipulation. The ghost that haunts the house is a physical presence that scares Claire and forces her to confront her deepest fears. But the real villain in this story is Norman, Claire's husband. At first, Norman seems like the perfect loving husband. He's protective, caring, and tries to calm Claire's nerves when things start to get strange. However, as the movie goes on, we learn that Norman is hiding secrets from Claire. The psychological horror really comes from his role in the story. At one point, it becomes clear that Norman has been keeping a dark secret about his past, and this secret is tied to the supernatural events in their house. Norman's actions throughout the film create a sense of deep unease. He is a master of manipulation, using both love and guilt to control Claire's actions and emotions. At the same time, we see he's hiding a lot of guilt and shame. The combination of his manipulation and his hidden past make him a very complex character. He's not just a typical villain. He's a man who's been carrying a lot of psychological baggage, and this baggage affects how he interacts with Claire. As the film reveals more about his past, we see how his secrets push Claire further into madness. Norman's lies and his emotional manipulation add to the psychological horror. It's not just the ghost that's scaring Claire. It's also realizing that the person she trusted the most, her husband, may be part of the nightmare she's experiencing. Norman's role as both a physical and psychological threat make him one of the most chilling parts of the film. While Claire and Norman are the main focus, the supporting characters in the film also play an important role in shaping Claire's mental state. These secondary characters help build the psychological tension as they challenge Claire's understanding of what's going on. Throughout the film, Claire interacts with her friends, her neighbors, and even the mysterious ghostly figure she sees. Some of these characters are well-meaning, but they also add to Claire's confusion. Her friend, who tries to help her figure out what's happening, gives Claire advice, but it's never quite enough to convince her that she's not losing her mind. These interactions cause Claire to question who she can trust. Are they really trying to help her, or are they just trying to make her feel better while ignoring the truth? This doubt builds up and makes Claire feel even more isolated. The ghostly figure that appears in the house also plays an important role in Claire's mental breakdown. At first, Claire wonders if the ghost is real, or if it's just her mind playing tricks on her. But the more she encounters this figure, the more her reality starts to blur. She's unsure if she's seeing the ghost because she's being haunted, or because she's losing touch with what's real. These moments of confusion and uncertainty force Claire to question everything she thought she knew about herself and her surroundings. Ultimately, the supporting characters create a sense of isolation for Claire. Even when people are around to help, she feels alone in her struggle. The people who should be supporting her either don't believe her or aren't able to help in any meaningful way. This isolation makes Claire's psychological decline even more tragic, as she's left to deal with her fears on her own. by focusing on the psychological struggles of Claire, Norman, and the supporting characters. What Lies Beneath creates a haunting experience that's not just about supernatural horror. It's about how our minds betray us, especially when we're faced with loss, guilt, and fear. The film plays with the idea that the real monsters aren't the ones we see. They're sometimes the ones that hide inside us, manipulating our thoughts and actions. In What Lies Beneath, mirrors and water are two important symbols that help tell the story and add layers of meaning to the film. These symbols represent things that go beyond just what you see on screen, and they help us understand the emotional and psychological journey of the main character, Claire. First, the mirrors. They're everywhere in the film, and they're not just there to reflect the characters' appearances. On a deeper level, mirrors represent reflection, both literal and metaphorical. Claire is constantly faced with reflections of herself in mirrors, windows, and other surfaces. These reflections force her to look at herself, her past, and her fears. At the beginning of the film, Claire is struggling with grief, loss, and some issues in her marriage, but she's not sure whether she can face the truth. The mirrors act as a reminder to her that she needs to look deeper inside herself and confront what she's been avoiding, whether it's the truth about her own emotions or the secrets her husband may be hiding. Water is another powerful symbol, and it's connected to deep emotions. Water has often been seen in literature and film as a symbol of emotional depth. It represents the things we don't always see or understand, like our fears, desires, and traumas. In the movie, water is constantly present, whether it's in the form of the lake outside, Claire's house, or the various scenes involving her submerged in or near water. The idea of being trapped in water relates to how Claire feels emotionally. She feels overwhelmed, almost like she's drowning in her grief and confusion. The water reflects the emotional chaos she's going through, as well as her fear of being unable to escape from the situation she's found herself in. Just as water is powerful and uncontrollable, she too is emotional. Claire faces this turmoil as she deals with the growing paranoia and terror in her life. Now, the supernatural events in the film, like the ghostly encounters Claire experiences, can be seen as representations of her inner turmoil. The ghost that haunts the house is not just a spooky presence. It's a symbol for Claire's unresolved emotional pain. The spirit represents the feelings Claire has been trying to ignore or suppress, especially regarding her past and her marriage. The ghost is connected to betrayal and loss, two major fears that Claire has. Throughout the film, she starts to suspect that her husband, Norman, has been hiding something from her. As the ghost becomes more active, it seems to show Claire the darker side of her husband's past, the lies he's told, the secrets he's been keeping. The supernatural events are not just about the fear of the unknown, but also the fear of facing uncomfortable truths. The ghost could be seen as a manifestation of guilt. It brings Claire face to face with the uncomfortable feelings she's been avoiding. The more Claire uncovers, the more she has to deal with the doubt and guilt she feels about her marriage and whether she truly knows her husband. This shows how the supernatural in the film is linked to Claire's emotional struggles. It's not about the creepy occurrences in the house, but about her internal battle with trusting herself and the people around her. The ghost, in this sense, is not an outside force, but a reflection of what's happening inside her mind, a visual representation of her inner fears, doubts, and grief. On a broader level, What Lies Beneath also touches on some important themes about relationships, trust, and the way we hide our true selves. One of the key themes in the film is isolation. especially emotional isolation. Even though Claire and her husband Norman live in a beautiful, seemingly perfect house, there's a sense of loneliness and separation between them. They may appear to have it all together, but as Claire starts to dig deeper, she realizes that their marriage is not as perfect as it seems. This idea of a perfect marriage falling apart is a commentary on how we sometimes wear masks in our relationships, hiding our true feelings or the things that are really bothering us. It's a reflection of how people can feel isolated, even in the most seemingly secure relationships, because they aren't able or willing to be completely honest with one another. The film suggests that sometimes the person closest to you, the one you think you know best, may be hiding things from you. This can create a huge gap between what you think is real and what's actually happening. In Claire's case, she's isolated by her own fear and the growing sense that she can't trust her own husband or even herself. The movie shows how difficult it can be to confront uncomfortable truths, especially when they threaten to shatter the world we built. Another layer of the film is about trust, or rather the breakdown of trust. As Claire starts to investigate the strange occurrences and her suspicions grow, she begins to doubt her husband's intentions and her own sanity. This theme of trust is a reflection of how relationships, especially marriages, can be fragile. Trust is not something that can be taken for granted. The movie suggests that when that trust is broken, it can unravel everything, leaving people questioning their reality and their relationships. The idea that secrets and lies can destroy the foundation of even the most solid-sounding relationships is a powerful message, and it's one that many can relate to on some level. In What Lies Beneath, the social commentary and on relationships and trust helps to make the horror feel real and personal. Not just about the fear of ghosts or supernatural forces, it's about the fear of betrayal, guilt, and the emotional damage that can come from not being truthful with those closest to us. By using these visual metaphors, psychological symbols, and the themes of isolation and trust, What Lies Beneath creates a haunting and thought-provoking experience. The supernatural elements in the film, they're not just there to scare us, they're tied to deeper emotional truths that resonate with our own fears and experiences. And this makes the film not just a horror story, but a commentary on the complexities of human relationships and the hidden emotions that shape our lives. When we talk about pacing in a movie like What Lies Beneath, we're talking about how fast or slow the story moves along. In this case, the pacing is a slow burn. The film takes its time to build tension. It doesn't rush into big scares or wild action scenes. Instead, the story quietly unfolds, bit by bit. It keeps us on edge as it goes. This type of pacing is common in psychological horror because it allows the fear to build slowly in your mind, making you feel more and more uneasy as time goes on. In the film, the tension starts small but grows as Claire's mental state begins to deteriorate. At first, the weird things happening in her house might seem like just a little odd, but as Claire gets more and more convinced that something isn't right, you start to feel like maybe she's losing her mind. This keeps us guessing. Are these supernatural events actually happening, or is Claire just losing touch with reality? The film never gives a clear answer, right? Which keeps us thinking and feeling uncertain, just like Claire does. As the movie moves forward, the tension starts to build. Things start happening faster, and you can feel the pressure mounting. But it's not just about the pace picking up. It's about how everything you've seen before gets reinterpreted. There are a lot of twists in the plot, especially near the end of the movie, that make you rethink everything you thought you understood. These twists are not just about surprising us with big moments, but more about how the truth of the characters and events slowly comes to life, often making us question if we really understood the story at all. The biggest twist in What Lies Beneath comes when we learn the truth about Norman. Once you find out what he's been hiding, it completely changes the way you look at everything that's happened before. You'll look back at all of the clues and see them in a new light. This was what makes the ending so unsettling. It's not just about a big reveal. It's about realizing that everything you thought was one thing is actually something else. And that changes your whole perception of the movie. The ending itself is a bit of a mystery as well. While we do get a sense of resolution, meaning the story wraps up in a way that answers most of our questions, the film leaves some things open for interpretation. Is the haunting truly over? Is everything Claire saw real, or was it all in her head? The fact that the movie leaves these questions unanswered only adds to the psychological nature of the horror. It keeps us thinking after the movie ends, and we might not even find ourselves imagining our own answers to the mysteries the film has left behind, which is what actually makes it effective as a psychological thriller. So while the pacing is slow, it's that gradual buildup of tension that makes the twist in the ending so powerful. The plot structure, with its careful pace and unexpected turns, will keep you engaged and leave you with that lingering feeling of unease, even when you know all the answers it's going to give you. What Lies Beneath has become kind of a significant film within psychological horror. It deals more with mind and emotions and the fears that come from within rather than relying on scares and monsters, so it is truly psychological horror more than supernatural. It's not quite as famous or influential as other horror movies. It definitely had an impact on how filmmakers approach creating tension and focus on characters' inner struggles. One thing that makes What Lies Beneath stand out, though, was its mix of those supernatural elements. Ghosts and strange happenings, the deep psychological themes of grief, guilt, and self-doubt. This combination inspires other filmmakers to experiment with the blending of the supernatural and psychological horror. Some similar films around the same time that dealt with the same thing were The Others, which we just talked about, and The Sixth Sense from 1999. All these coming out at the same time. These are movies that focus on making us, the audience, question what's real and what isn't, and create that sense of unease that we talk about later. When What Lies Beneath first came out, it got mixed reviews from critics and viewers. Some people really liked the movie because its eerie atmosphere and the way they were kept on edge. Pfeiffer's performance as Claire, the woman trying to figure out if she's being haunted or losing her mind, was praised. Many people enjoyed the slow buildup of tension and the way the film made us feel uncomfortable and uncertain about what was happening. However, there are others who felt like the movie didn't have enough scares or excitement to really stay fully engaged. Some thought it was too slow or didn't deliver enough of those typical horror thrills. Despite this, the movie's deep dive into the psychological themes, like trust, grief, and the fear of the unknown, was still appreciated by fans of more thoughtful, slow-burn horror. Over time, it's gained a bit of a loyal following. People who like films that focus on the mind and emotions instead of jumping straight into spooky action. So What Lies Beneath wouldn't be considered a cult classic as the same way as some other horror films that have those huge devoted fan bases. It does have a special place among certain viewers. It's not a film that everyone would call their favorite horror movie, but for fans of psychological thrillers, those who enjoy horror films that make them think and leave them questioning reality, this movie tends to resonate with them. Those fans that aren't into the darker, scary horror tend to enjoy this film. It's the type of fans that enjoy films that don't show jump scares and ghosts, but make you feel unsettled by the complexity of characters and the emotional struggles. In this way, What Lies Beneath is appreciated by that specific group who are drawn to movies that mess with your mind, leave things open to interpretation, and don't always give clear answers. It's not as popular or widely talked about as some other films, but it has its unique spot. While What Lies Beneath may not have been a massive hit at the time, it's made its mark on the genre. I'm sure it's inspired other filmmakers to explore the psychological side of horror. And one thing that was truly great about What Lies Beneath is the fact that Robert Zemeckis made this film while on a break from Castaway. He needed to leave and give Tom Hanks 10 months to lose the weight and grow the beard for that role. And in that time, he created this movie. That is pretty impressive. So for my final thoughts, What Lies Beneath is a movie that blends two types of horror, supernatural and psychological. It stands out in the horror genre because it doesn't rely on loud scares or jumpy moments. Instead, it focuses on slowly building a sense of unease. The story can get under your skin, not by showing you a lot of shocking things, but by keeping you wondering what's real and what's imagined. The main focus is on the characters, especially Claire. As the movie goes on, we see her struggle with fear, doubt, and confusion. This psychological depth, where Claire's mind starts to unravel, makes the movie feel unsettling and intense. The way the movie is paced is slow, but this slow build-up is a big part of the experience. You might feel frustrated at times because the action isn't fast or intense, but if you stick with it, the tension in the story starts to grow. It's a film that asks you to pay close attention and think about what's happening. So it's not the kind of movie where you just sit back and relax. You'll need to follow the small details to get the full picture. One of the movie's strengths is the way it does develop the characters. You really get to know Claire, her fears and her doubts, making her journey much more personal. The film also does a great job of keeping us on edge because it's never fully clear of the things Claire is experiencing. Or are they real? Or are they just happening in her mind? That psychological tension can be powerful. However, a weakness is those same reasons. The pacing is quite slow. Some viewers might find it boring or too drawn out. It takes its time to build tension, so if you prefer fast-paced action, this won't be your favorite. The supernatural elements, the ghostly events, are also pretty vague, so it can be hard to know what's really going on. It's this lack of clarity that makes it a psychological horror film, but might leave some viewers feeling unsatisfied, especially if you're hoping for more obvious scares. For me, I give What Lies Beneath a 6 out of 10. It's not a perfect movie, and I can see why people find it frustrating. The pacing might be too slow for some, and the supernatural elements not as clear as you might expect from a typical ghost story. But despite these flaws, the film does a pretty good job with character development and building psychological tension, leaving you feel uneasy, even if you're not completely sure what's happening. The performances from Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford are strong. The atmosphere is haunting, making it a solid choice for fans of psychological horror. If you're a fan of horror films that are more about the mind than the monsters, What Lies Beneath is definitely worth watching. It's perfect for people who like slow burn thrillers and don't mind taking their time with a movie. If you enjoy stories about guilt, trauma, and fear, and you're okay with a bit of mystery, this film will likely hook you. But if you prefer your horror with more immediate scares and fast action, this might not be the one for you. So if you're in the mood for a movie that will make you think and keep you guessing, give What Lies Beneath a try. Just be prepared for a slower pace and a bit of ambiguity. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Real Talk Horror Edition. I hope you enjoyed diving into what lies beneath with me. It's one of those films that really makes you think, and I'd love to hear what you thought about it. If you liked today's episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you have a minute, please leave a review. Your feedback truly helps me out, and I love reading your thoughts on the films we discuss. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find me on Threads and Instagram at Real Talk, where I post update behind the scenes content, trivia, and sometimes even little sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. And if you've got any thoughts, comments, or questions about what lies beneath, or psychological horror in general, please feel free to reach out. I love hearing from listeners and always enjoy reading your takes on the movies we cover. Next week, we'll be talking about another psychological horror film, 2003's Gothica. It's got a mysterious, spooky vibe and plenty of twists, and I can't wait to break it down with all of you. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you've had as much fun listening as I did talking about these chilling movies. Until next time, take care, stay spooky, and I'll see you next week. Keep your mind sharp. And don't let the ghosts get you.
Creeping through the silence dark, whispers in the midnight park. The night is cold, there's no escape. Ghostly figures take their shape. Stake their claim. Footsteps follow close behind. Haunting thoughts invade your mind. Run away, but they won't go. In the darkness, fear will grow. Midnight shadows come to play. In your dreams, they'll always stay. Windows rattle, doors they creak. Ghostly whispers start to speak. Every corner hides a fear. Close your eyes, they're drawing near. Candles flicker, spirits call. In the night they'll take it all. Midnight strikes, the clocks rewind. Nightmares now are intertwined. Run away, but they won't go. In the darkness, fear will grow. Midnight shadows come to play. In your dreams, they'll always stay.